Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is From Beta to Beast Part 2, page 3. I've sort of got the first panel all set up here. And I've got my. So let's go layer, scale layer. So I know the first part was a lot of sort of setup, a lot of like the subtle hints. And coming into part 2, I think I'm slow walking the growth some more. Layer, new layer. It's sort of the thing is in these slow in these slow change tales, a lot of the fun, at least in my mind, in these stories, is no, blew that. Oh well. Invert shrink. I sort of cleared that from the clipboard. Um, a lot of the fun is sort of early on when you're not really when the character isn't really sure it's going on. There's like the suspicions, the speculation, the fear. So the story has a lot of opportunity at that point. But you know, once the growth is confirmed by the characters and once it's in their face, then the story kind of shifts and it ends up focusing on the growth. So it's like with these slow tales, I like to take, I kind of love to take advantage and just play up kind of this aspect to it. Let's pop you over there. And it's probably it's probably going to get slow walked to the point where he's either this roughly the same height as Brian, or where he's just a little taller, and then basically from there the growth should get accelerated. Because there's only like so much quote unquote dealing with it that you can do. Plus, it's I'm really happy. I think for some reason with this one more than any other piece, and I don't know why. The piece that like took all of a day to come up with the story for, and it's just like basically 0 to 60 as far as sort of developing the brainstorming and developing the story in my head. But I am really having fun with sort of the suspicions, the hints, all these little like suggestions, all these little hints that something is wrong. Let's see. Yeah. So let's grab you, Control C to copy it, and we'll come here, edit, paste as new layer. For some reason you're in my way. thinks he put on so much muscle last night. Now, you know what? We'll go yesterday. He outgrew them. Although there is a lot of I think I have like sort of a lot of opportunity to showcase to sort of expand on kind of the non-physical changes he's going through. What the heck? I didn't want to do Control C. Try this again. And I think too early on I get sort of the establishing kind. I don't know if you want to call it establishing, but you got that whole like 4 or 5 page gym scene with Steve and Brian competing on the bench. It's sort of like to showcase at this point before his growth kicks into gear, sort of accelerate, kind of shows how much stronger and bigger they are than he is, than Kevin is. And it sort of gives a baseline for later, too. When, like, at some point you get a scene where you get the scene where Brian eventually realizes that he's suddenly stronger than him. I know I like talk about not wanting to spoil much of this story, but I think you're expecting that much. So as I'm coming into this gym scene, not really sure I want to go into the depth that I did on chest day, on bench day. I don't, I'm not really looking to kind of have them do another competition. I think it's this one. Well, you'll see in a second, in a couple of minutes, but like the idea is here is that he still thinks it's like to him Kevin is still the small kind of uh, chubby, scrawny, skinny, fat kind of type. So it's like, well, he kind of wouldn't necessarily do it at home, like right here in this scene that I'm waiting for. He kind of feels comfortable around his friend Steve, kind of poking fun at Kevin for his goofy thought that like one session in the gym made his muscles explode. And then it's going to backfire. Of course, in the next panel, it's going to backfire when Steve kind of notices that there is in fact a little bit of muscle under his soft arms. His arms aren't all fat. If you kind of look at his this oh yeah, it did save. I'm like, what's going on here? So, you know, I don't think you can I don't think you can see it on your screen at home. I think it's probably too small. But if you can kind of look in at his arms, you might see it on the page. If you're reading the actual story. You know, there's already hints that there's something there. You know, that there's like slight bulges on his arms if you look. And I need a new layer. Because this one did not save to the clipboard last time. Or I cleared the clipboard. Edit, paste as new layer. So we'll save it this time. You know, so Steve in this next panel is about to lay on a compliment, and it's going to throw Brian for a loop because it's not exactly something he's noticed, or it's another or something he has noticed. Suddenly, it doesn't. He realizes it's like one more thing that's not right. Huh. We're just gonna let's see from back. Let's see. I got smile. Let's take the smile off because he's kind of serious here. Let's narrow a little bit. So let's go in here. Paste as new layer vertically. Come down here. Let's see. I don't know about that, but I don't know about that, but you have a pretty good base. I think I'll save the rest of this for the next panel. Edit paste as. So it's kind of to recap the hints. He already noticed the clothes getting tighter. earlier, Kevin didn't seem like himself when he was standing in front of the refrigerator looking for something other than beer and soda to drink. And then he did a double take, a couple of in the first page here, when he thought Kevin was just a little bit closer to his height than he thought. And then on the previous page, I don't know if it comes across, but like the fact that he like, his first stock pick turned out to be a winner threw him for a loop, and now he's like, even though he already saw him shirtless that morning, it's going to be here where it really strikes him that is. Well, I mean, he did comment that he wasn't as fat as he thought he was. Now he's going to suddenly realize that like these arms aren't all fat. See, I know it's hard. It's really hard to see, but there's like a slight bulge where the tricep is, and the bicep is slightly bulging. The funny thing is, like, when shooting at these, if I've got the right angle, his arms actually look bigger than Brian's, even though they're not. It's perspective. Okay, I'm gonna just pop this in here now. Get it out of the way. I don't know about that, but you have a pretty good base in those arms. I was gonna make a comment about not seeing him outside a t-shirt, but I think that might be almost irrelevant. Let's see. I don't know if it's not for nothing, Bernard. You sure you never lived with your brother before I met you? I guess that's gonna have to do. I'm gonna hold off on the box until I've got the panel and know what it's gonna look like. Yeah, see if you look right here, there's the slight indentation of a tricep. The bicep is kind of coming at. It's like not there yet, but it's like that's kind of the point here. Is there's like just enough that he notices, and that Brian kind of didn't notice in the morning. I think the question I'm having is, at what point is he going to decide to kind of clean up and get rid of the beard and hair? It's sort of one of the conscious changes I want him to make. But on the other hand, now that since I've been working with him, I didn't like the hair and beard at first, and now it's kind of growing on me since I've been working with him. And sort of another physical change with the character that I'm debating on is it's sort of in creating him, when I was first creating him, sort of one of the conscious decisions in making him the beta was sort of having the kind of weak chin here. Notice it's kind of like condensed, squashed, whatever you want to call it. Um, open as layers. On the final character, let's see, what do we want to scale? Um, I do have a version of him in his final form, and it without changing the chin, it doesn't look bad. I mean, it's his face in the final form works without bringing the chin down and squaring the jaw. But it's been one thing I've been wondering is if I should make that change after all. Okay, no, it's right where it's supposed to be. Edit, paste as new layer, invert, shrink, invert, edit. Come on. I'm trying to think what kind of a shot I want here. Maybe like this. And then let's see what we can do. I guess it's gonna work. Actually, let's do a down shot to sort of symbolize the power balance here that he's looking down on Kevin. I might end up trimming this out, but uh, I'll hold on here as long as I've got something to talk about. I think also what I want to do here is sort of where in the first part, in the last gym scene, was to establish sort of a baseline with the strength of these two characters, Ryan and Steve. Kind of what I want to do here is, in kind of building up his confidence, Steve is going to make him do a little bit of flexing. I'm not going to go full posing routine, but have him do is sort of make him flex, so you kind of get an idea of how small his arms are now versus later when he's giant. I don't want to, it's like with everything else, I don't want to spoil. I don't want to give away how big he's going to get. He's going to look like. But one of the challenges with these growth stories in general, you have the character to unrealistic proportions. The challenge is always fitting the character into the environment. So I think when people write stories online, post them on their sites or like on DeviantArt or like musclegrowth.org, it's easy to have a character grow to like 12 feet or 20 feet or whatever when you don't have to actually see the limitations that they have to deal with at that size. When I work in these 3D environments, like with Little Bro, for example, even though the rooms are oversized, the ceiling heights are a little high compared to real life. Um, you're still restricted by that ceiling height when the character grows. You're still restricted by door size when Corey is approaching like 9 feet and Jack is all heck. You know, you can't hand wave it as much that he actually can't fit through a door. So in just a pro story, the character can squeeze through a door. When I'm doing it here, at the larger size, Corey can't squeeze through these doors or those doors. So I've got to hand wave it in a different way and just never show him coming in and out. That's the kind of thing you got to deal with. So it's like, so that's probably part of the reason why I don't go super big all that often. And why when I do 10 feet seems to be the cap. It's because anything bigger than that and the character it becomes it really does become impossible to work with a character that size in a normal sized environment. Yeah. Hmm. It's like I'm waiting for this picture to go up before something else. kind of going back to the hints, that's what I'm having fun on right now, and that's why it seems like probably even in this part there won't be a lot of growth because I'm just having. It's like right now I'm having fun with these little hints, with just kind of teasing Brian that something's up. And then and I'm slowly growing the character, and then it's kind of, I already know, I'm already sure of it. I mean, I'm not planning to do this, but I know it's going to happen. That kind of, like I said, once he just passes Brian, at that point, his growth will probably accelerate because I lose that aspect of uncertainty. It becomes certain, so then I might as well get into it. It's like I said, probably because of that, this is going to be a longer piece. Um, I was hoping maybe 4 parts, but at the rate I'm going with his growth, this could end up being 6 to 8 without any deep story to it, just because I'm kind of having fun. Um, I guess one thing I will talk about, I don't think I've filmed, I don't think I've been record, I don't think I recorded anything since, but sort of with that gym sequence, the last gym suite sequence in the first part, I guess I will talk about that one. Um, that one was a weird one for me. I think the 4 pages where they're bench pressing. Um, normally well, as you see when if you're watching these, I pretty much do this in sequence. You know, picture one, then picture two, then picture three, and go back and forth. Um, I sometimes make some exceptions, shooting scenes out of order, but it's infrequent. With that gym sequence in the first part, um, to sort of save time, because I didn't want to pose one character on the bench, then reset him to put him in the spotter position, and then repose him again to put him back on the bench. I ended up doing the images across those 4 pages in batches. So I basically did all the images. I think the order of operations was I did the sequence of images with Steve loading the bar with each plate. I show him putting one plate on the bar, then position him with the next plate, and so on and so on. And then I did the same thing with Brian. Did all the shots of Brian loading the bar, and then set Brian up on the bench and did all the scenes of Brian benching at each stage in one chunk, and so and then the same with him. And I want to say there were 3 reaction shots, one with him and 2 with the extras in the background. Those I shot when they came up, and I had to be careful because shooting these out of order. I had to make sure if I had a character out of place that I wasn't getting him in a shot, or at least he'd be out of the far enough on the edge of the frame where he'd get cut off. Wow, this is taking a long time. Um, the other characters, this wasn't taking 10 minutes. And some of the hair on the other characters was slowing this down. Wow, this just will not render. What is going on? And then I think probably, I think when I started the actual bench press scenes in that sequence, that's kind of when I started putting the pages together with the images I had and then filling in with each sequence. So it's like basically took all day to get something, to get it like a page done. And like at one point, I had all 4 pages opened at once to work on. I can't seem to get that matched up. Oh, maybe it is. Eyes are starting to get blurry staring at this screen. Okay, no, it's right. Okay. Select invert, select shrink, select invert, edit cut, select none. And then we'll merge that down. Let's see. I think I can leave this as it is. Let's go Control C on that and edit paste as a layer. Shoot. There we go. Edit paste as a layer. Okay. Merge down. This, where are you? Okay, now I can't seem to get it. There we go. There we go. Oops, I might have to take. You know what? Yeah, collapse all. I'm gonna take Kevin and Steve and just pop them in here for now, so I can get a bit of a wider shot with him currently used. Yes, what I want is narrow. Have a little up down action. I think too. Let's. Oh, okay, it's this one. Oh my god. course, the irony in this scene that I'm about to do, is he kind of started off making fun of Kevin, and now that he thinks Steve is making fun of him, now he's suddenly jumping in and acting like it's a bad thing. Whoops, I took the caps lock off. I think that's enough, Steve. 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 I don't think he likes the jokes. Maybe I'll come up with something better later, but I think that's enough, Steve. It looks like it looks like he likes the jokes. I think it's bothering you. I think that's enough, Steve. It looks like can't you see the jokes are bothering him? Oops, I mean that should be a question mark. Okay. I have to say, I almost thought about having him skip the gym already, use the excuse that his clothes don't fit anymore. Because sort of what I wanted to do was to use this gym scene as a private moment between Steve and Brian. But I got thinking, and this seemed like a better idea. But eventually, that's what I want to do. I think that's one thing in my head. I'm not sure how to. I love those posters on the wall. Uh, if I've got it's, I'm not quite sure how to do it in story. If he starts loving the gym more and more as he gets bigger and bigger, the idea is how to separate him from Brian and Steve, so that Brian can use the gym as a private space with Steve to kind of confide his fears, his concerns, his annoyances, etc. I think it's sort of the idea is Steve is supposed to be kind of the shoulder for him to cry on when, as his brother starts growing and like surpasses him, and yeah, and he's like struggling because he's becoming the beta in the relationship. But the gym doesn't work that way if he's got. Oh, see, this one came quick. How long did this one take? 4 minutes. Why couldn't the other one take 4 minutes? If he's got Kevin accompanying him, open air flares. So it's sort of the one thing, it's sort of one thing that I haven't quite worked out in my head is sort of at what point do they split up and Kevin starts going to the gym by himself without Brian, and what's the impetus for that? Oops, I thought I had you shoot. Actually, I think I'm gonna bring it over one. That was two. There we go. So it's the question is, does Kevin realize that he's outgrowing Brian in the gym and decides to go on his own because his brother's holding him back, or is it more like he wants to go at a different time, but realizes that this time is his preferred time, is Brian's preferred time. Is does his impetus have nothing to do with sort of the power dynamic, the strength change, the strength difference, the growth, the size difference, that sort of thing? Does it or doesn't it? That's the merge down. And two, at what point does that happen? Did I say that? I think I said that already, but the other impetus is like, at what point does that happen? How much can I milk these scenes with with them as a trio? Um, Trying to think what I want. No, I might have to take him out of the picture this time. This is the x-axis, right? I want to bring him just a little closer, and I'm not gonna kind of like pulling away. I'm not exactly sure what pose I'm going for here. This is the problem. Ah, oh, there it is. And I'm not sure why I bother doing the pointy finger thing, because every time I have a character pointing a finger, it gets buried beneath a a word bubble. Yeah, okay. I think it's the mouse that's doing that. So let's grab this box. So like I said, this is the impetus. Ah, shoot. I'm gonna have to redo that one, huh? This is the impetus to have Kevin flex and sort of give more of an early establishing where he is at this point. Like, not joking. He's got some serious guns for someone who's never serious guns for someone who's never been in the gym. Make a muscle. Let's see what you got. Okay, so I'm gonna end up stretching this over here. Okay, that's good. And then I'm gonna have to redo this one. Actually, um, can I bring that in to the next line? Yep. Okay. I was hoping I had more space. I think if they split up, if this gym group splits up early, I need you off, right? Yeah. And you. Then it lets me do something I've wanted to do coming into this piece, where Brian is sort of commiserating with his friend Steve, who thinks he's exaggerating because he's stayed away long enough where he hasn't seen he hasn't seen exactly what's been going on with Kevin. So so it's like what I want to do is, like I said, he comes to Steve, starts complaining about everything, and Steve just blows him off because he thinks he's full of it. Do I have? Okay, yes, I can just take that box. Let's delete this one. Where are you? Control C on that one. You layer transform this way, and then we'll pop it there. that one down. I think the challenge with this story is because I set this up to be a shorter story than I'm now imagining, there's really only three sets: the two apartments and the gym. So, yeah, see, you got a shot like this, and there's no mistaking the difference in their size because he's not really that um, much different from Brian when it comes to size. I mean, they're not the same, but they're similar. They've got similar builds. I made the models so that they're equal height. They're both 6'2", and he was 5'8" when he started. So it started as a 6-inch difference between him and them, and I'm not really tracking where he's at now. But I think I think at this point that difference has been trimmed in half. Just judging by what I see in the scene. Oh my God, is this going to be another 11-minute? Good Lord. Yeah, it's so weird. Like I did not like the hair and beard when I set up this character when I started, but now that now that I'm like, what is this, like 27 pages in? It's grown on me. I'm sure I want to get rid of it now. And speaking of size differences, like in this particular shot makes him look bigger than he appears in every other shot. Oh, that's perspective for you. I think like kind of go back. Like I bounce around in conversations, but this one's moving somewhat quicker. Okay, we're not gonna hit 10 minutes on this one then. Cool. Like another challenge I have when dealing with oversized characters is when I expand the models that if I refer to like these people as the models, when I expand the character for the growth, it ends up stretching the textures that are overlaying the model. I think I had this conversation with somebody on Discord, layer scale layer. But if you go to Little Bro and you go to the dream sequence later in the piece where he's imagining Corey as a giant romping through the among the trees there. Um, if you kind of look closely, you can see that the texture on Corey looks odd because of that stretching, because it's been stretched. Okay, you're where you're supposed to be. Um, So that kind of becomes the other limitation with trying to deal with giant characters, unless image size. With the shrinking stories, I do this. You sort of get around it by adjusting the rest of the universe around the character instead of adjusting the character within the universe. What am I doing? Select, invert, invert, adding, cut. So the alternative to having the one character grow would be to shrink the rest of the universe around him. And I've done that a few times in some of the shrinking stories. March down. So in Shrimp of the House Vacation, for example, a lot of this is bugging me, and it's probably like the screen. These, let's see, nope. Okay, for some reason those didn't look like they're lined up, but whatever. So it's like with Shrimp of the House Vacation, a lot of the scenes with smaller group is done like that. Cancel. Save image flatten. Where instead of shrinking Dave, Liz, and Allison, I grew the entire forest and the animals. One exception was, for example, the skunk and the raccoon didn't behave properly when I tried to make them bigger. So in the scenes with the raccoon and the skunk, I had to fall back on the typical shrink the characters instead of grow the universe. But in all the other scenes, especially with the squirrels, um, I almost thought you were Brian when I saw you wearing his clothes. He says his clothes don't fit anymore. He thinks he put on so much muscle yesterday he outgrew them. I don't know about that, but you have a pretty good base on those arms. Not for nothing, but are you sure you never lifted with your brother before I met you? I think that's enough, Steve. Can't you see the jokes are bothering him? Yeah, I'm not joking. He's got some serious guns for someone who's never been in the gym. Make a muscle. Let's see what you got. That's page 3. I hope you like that. I hope you're liking the story. I think you'll like it when the growth really kicks off, probably in part 5. No, I'm just kidding. But I will see you next time.